Hey everybody. Hope you're joining on for a little lunchtime chat. We're excited to see all of you popping in. Dr. Bulsiewicz just requested to join, so let me accept that. Hello. Hello,
Hello.
Dr. B.
How are you, Natalie? It's great to see you.
I'm awesome. This is so exciting. Thanks for joining on, everybody. Happy, I think it's Thursday. Yesterday, I thought it was Wednesday, or I thought it was Thursday yesterday, so here we are.
Yeah, I lose track of time all the time. It's just when you're working too hard, you know?
That's what it is. And the past couple of years are kind of a time suck. So it's good to see you, and thanks for joining, everybody. I'm Natalie Gentili, for those of you who don't know me. I'm a primary care physician in Pittsburgh, and I'm so excited to be talking with you, Dr. Bulsiewicz, today. Can you introduce yourself to my followers who might not know you yet?
Yeah, for sure. Natalie, you can call me Will. So, hey, everyone. So in case you don't know me, my name is Will Bulsiewicz. I am a gastroenterologist, and I'm also an author. And I'm just a big believer that nutrition should be an important part of what we do as doctors and an important part of everyone's life. And it was transformative for me. I corrected some serious health issues that I had about 10 years ago. And then I brought it into my clinic and I saw my patients have amazing results. And then I felt like I had to share that story, and it turned into 2 books. And so now I'm here and I get the privilege of hanging out with you, Natalie. So it's good.
Awesome. Well, this is so excited, Will. I have a whole, if you see me look over, it's because I have a whole outline I put together last night over a glass of wine.
Oh, okay.
Just of things to chat about. Because as a primary care doc who does lifestyle medicine, I see a lot of GI complaints. We have a lot of discussions about nutrition. We talk about whole body health. So these two guys are a huge part of my personal life and what I do with patients. So the way you and I connected was actually back in June. I was looking back through our messages. It's because I kind of like posted a saucy, sassy Italian post about some thoughts about some fear mongering that can happen in the wellness industry, and how sometimes, those of us as physicians can steer from an evidence-based path when it comes to, counseling patients. And I know you've mentioned that in your books before.
Like getting away from evidence-based, yes. Or what do you mean?
Yeah, and how there's fear mongering, and then kind of in the wellness industry, we kind of move away from really focusing on evidence-based medicine to treat people.
I totally agree. At the end of the day, I feel like the choices that we make, there needs to be some sort of reason that we're motivated to make these choices. And although science is not perfect, it is certainly the best that we have in terms of being a compass that can guide us. And, I like to sort of think of it like a compass, because a compass isn't perfect. A compass is a general guide, and then you use the information, but you also use your brain in addition to the compass to try to figure out what is the right path for you. And so that's sort of the way that I approach all of this. The internet world is a crazy world. It's really complicated. There's different people from different perspectives. There's different agendas. And I don't think that medicine is so black and white. It's not as black and white as we were taught in medical school.
Yes.
So I feel like there's a place for conversation, but I also feel that those conversations should be done in a way that's respectful. And so one of the things that I hate about the internet is that when we're trying to engage in these conversations, it seems like it always turns into mudslinging.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why are we doing that? Like, why can't we just talk to one another and be real? And be honest.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's what I find so approachable about your work, is that, we get into this world of restrictive dieting and like these, black and white recommendations for patient care. And all of that can be really off-putting, and I think can affect our trust in the healthcare system, which is already very fragile as is. And so I love how your work is actually talking about adding in. Your work is about, adding more to what your plate looks like. And I think that's really a palatable thing for patients.
Yeah, I think we all just want to feel better, and we want to find something that works for us. And I don't believe that you should have to compromise on flavor, but I also don't believe that you should compromise on your health either. Mm-hmm. And so striking that balance is, I think, where we're missing the mark these days, because I feel like most people are choosing one but not the other. Mm-hmm. and they fear the alternative choice. Like, I can't do that. I can't merge these goals together. But yes, you can. You can definitely merge these goals together. And so, this is where sort of the ideas behind my books come from, is that, like, I love food, and I'm not going to stop eating delicious food, but I also know that eating without any thought to health just like destroyed my health.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like finding the right way to do this for each one of us is the ultimate goal.
So I was just outlining here in the beginning of Fiber Fueled, you talk about how in our healthcare system and kind of health education, we don't really get a lot about nutrition, if at all. I mean, I see that teaching at the med school here at Pitt. Like, I get 30 minutes to talk about lifestyle medicine and nutrition, and that's on their family med rotation. Did it take a gastroenterology fellowship for you to really start to be able to have that as part of your education, or were you even then fully self-taught?
Natalie, nutrition. So for everyone else, as a gastroenterologist, we are supposed to be the experts on nutrition. And what people don't understand is this is not practical nutrition for the normal human being. This is things like TPN, which is IV nutrition that is administered to people who are extremely sick, right? And it's completely different than nutritional needs of a person who has an extremely complicated disorder like a short gut syndrome against a normal human being who has high blood pressure and diabetes, and they're trying to figure out what to eat to reverse those specific issues. I didn't get nutritional education in medical school myself. And I didn't get in my residency or my fellowship, with complete respect to my mentors in these institutions that I continue to believe are great. But the problem is that it's a broken educational system because I was taught in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're in the hospital, the patients are sick and they're trying to die. Mm-hmm. And you're just trying to keep them alive. Mm-hmm. And in that setting, nutrition is honestly one of the things that you are least concerned about.
Right.
And so, but that's problematic because how do you think they got there in the first place? How do you think they got so sick? And these are lifestyle related diseases that we have that are many times preventable. And so from my perspective, I feel like this should be an important part of what we do within the healthcare system, but the system doesn't want to support it. So ultimately what it takes is young doctors, like frankly, this is mostly young doctors like you and I, who make the decision that I just don't care whether or not the insurance company is going to pay me additional money to talk to my patient about nutrition. I'm going to do it because I believe in it and I know it's the right thing to do. And I didn't become a doctor because my motivations are money. I became a doctor because my motivations are this person that I'm trying to help, that I'm trying to heal. So I just think that, this is where sort of the priority comes from. But the challenge is that the average person, so Natalie, how many hours, what time do you start work and what time do you go home? And do you have work when you get home?
Yeah. So I own my own private practice. I feel like I work all the time. Yep. Every day I'm working in some capacity, whether it's at home or in clinic.
Right. So, the issue is that the work never stops, right? You're on call constantly. You wake up at 7 o'clock, you're going by the time you wake up. And you typically work until 5 o'clock, and then you still have work to do when you get home after that. So now we're asking that person who's way overworked to then go and study nutrition in their spare time so that they can introduce this into their practice and take a pay cut in the process of doing that. It does not make sense. And so this is the inherent issue that we have.
Right. So, I mean, there are so many people commenting about how your books have saved their life. And it's so cool to see.
So these people, first of all, thank you to the people who are making these comments. I don't know if this Fofana John is a bot or...
It's making me laugh though. Is there a way to get rid of it?
So there is a way. But you have to do it because I can't do it.
Okay.
You got to click on their name, and then what you can do is you can actually just block them.
Oh, perfect.
And so...
Hi, Fofana John.
Yeah.
Gosh. Interesting. Anyway, so you're trying to, that's exactly right. If it's already not part of our medical education, and then we add to it the fact that the average, for example, primary care doc is going to have like 7 to 15 minutes with a patient. You know,
Right.
they're talking about all kinds of things. When are you going to be able to have the time to then bring more of that knowledge, you know, into the discussion?
Right. Right. Totally. And so, you know, we need to invent our own ways to do this. We need to be creative. Now, having a conversation is part of it. I think part of it, like, I'm sure that you have a great registered dietitian that you work closely with and that you refer your patients to, because as a medical doctor, like, this is not going to be a one-stop shop. We need to build a team for you. And part of that is having the registered dietitian. But I'm also a very big believer that our patients are intelligent human beings and they know their body better than anyone. And that's not to say that this is some sort of like saying that we're dismissing the medical system or the doctor, but it's more that this is a partnership, and part of this partnership is to empower them.
Mm-hmm.
And empowerment can come in many different forms. And it could be the 10-minute conversation, but it could also be a book recommendation,
Mm-hmm.
or a podcast, or an article, or a scientific reference. There's many different ways in which we can empower our patients, but I think that a big part of this responsibility is homework. What do we have our patients do so that they can learn too?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, do we have another one? Do we have another person?
Yeah. This is what happens. They'll keep coming back. You just got to keep blocking them. So
it's cool. It's cool. I can do this like whack-a-mole thing. So yeah, it's definitely a partnership. And I think it takes the ability to say, as the physician or the healthcare worker that's, you know, working with a patient, like, if you don't know the answer, I'm going to help find it for you. Even if I don't know the answer, I'm going to help find it. I'm going to work with the resources so we can work together. Instead of just saying like, you need to eat better and exercise by, like, that does not help. That's not the answer.
Yeah. That does not help at all.
No.
Yeah.
So I have this question for you. Is fiber the new protein? Kind of like is orange the new black?
I like the orange is the new black reference. So fiber is better than protein. Yes. I think fiber is better than protein. Protein is required for life. So that's not something that we should dismiss. I don't want to be on this bandwagon of, oh, who cares about protein? No, protein is important, right? But we don't have a protein problem. Mm-hmm. We just don't have a protein problem. I mean, 97% of Americans are not just getting adequacy of their protein, but they're actually excessively consuming protein. Mm-hmm. So if anything, most of us probably need less protein in our life, to be honest with you. Protein does put a strain on our kidneys. Mm-hmm. And even if it's plant-based protein puts a strain on our kidneys too. So, but what we have is a profound national fiber deficiency. This is a public health issue from my perspective. 95% of Americans are not getting even the minimal recommended amount of fiber. And when you look at the data, like, independent of sort of hey, this is the cool story about fiber, because that's, you know, I mean, I think it's fun. I love the story about how fiber connects to gut microbes, and then gut microbes create short-chain fatty acids from fiber. And these short-chain fatty acids are healing, and they have healing effects throughout our entire body, you know, affecting our gut, our immune system, our metabolism, our brain. Like, I love that. But like, let's just stick straight to the facts. Fiber. What happens when we consume more fiber? My favorite fiber study of all time, Andrew Reynolds, The Lancet, 2019. Mm-hmm. It was a systematic review and meta-analysis. And in this study, quite simply, when people consume more fiber, they are less likely to have a heart attack, less likely to die of heart disease, less likely to be diagnosed with 3 types of cancers, by the way, common cancers that are scary, less likely to die of cancer, less likely to have a stroke, less likely to be diagnosed with diabetes. Mm-hmm. Those are benefits that we could have by quite simply consuming more fiber. Right. 95% of us are not getting enough of it, and it's not hard to find. We just need to eat more plants.
Yeah. And the thing about your cookbook, which I'm like obsessed with, as I've told you, the Nashville Not Chicken, you know, it just gets aggressive in our house. Like, it was all gone last night. The whole platter of it was gone immediately. So, you know, the thing I love about your cookbook is a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I'm going to meal prep, you know, X, Y, and Z recipes. And the ingredients overlap a lot. So you don't feel like you're having to buy a ton of different ingredients. And I think that's what can be so scary for some people when they're trying to eat more fiber. It's like, well, what do I eat? How do I eat? How am I going to do this? And it's really just like, how do you add more color into your plate for this meal? And here are some ways, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like that is like a quite simple approach that actually adds more flavor and it makes it more fun and it also is better for your health. So like a quick example the other day, I was making lunch. All I did was I pulled out my Instant Pot, threw some farro and some water into the Instant Pot, boom, hit a button for 11 minutes, walk away from that. And on the stove, I put some tomato sauce and I just dropped some veggies in there and some mushrooms. And it simmered. It smelled delicious. The veggies got kind of like cooked, like, you know, the onions and the garlic and the mushrooms, they all got soft and tasty. And then you pull out this farro, put some arugula over the top, pour the sauce, boom. Like, and this is insanely healthy.
Yeah.
So, but I do feel like one of the roadblocks that exists is that people, they don't currently eat this way. They do love what they eat. Like most people, the food that they're currently eating, they're eating it because they enjoy it. And they don't even know where to start. Mm-hmm. And what I say is this, like whether it's my cookbook or you get my cookbook from the library or you find a recipe on the internet, no matter what it is, like literally don't even read. Look at the pictures. Mm-hmm. All right. Like in Us Weekly, look at the pictures and find the recipe, fold the page for the recipe that you're like, yo,
so good.
That sounds good. Yeah. I want to try that.
Yes.
Right? And don't try to go all in all at once. That is completely overwhelming. And I would personally never be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Do one meal. That's where we start. One meal. And let's see how that goes. And if you love the meal and it tastes great, you know what you should do? You should do that meal again because it tastes great, but it's also good for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a sense of confidence, I think, that some people might need to work on of like, I can try this even if I'm not a great cook, you know, or I can try this even if don't know how to chop an onion correctly. And so it does take that leap of faith. But like, yeah, the cookbook's so easy to follow. So we have a lot of questions. There are people with questions on here. And then I had some previous questions that came up that I want to bring up. So some of the things that I see a lot as a primary care doc. So this might cover what a lot of people are asking here. The first one is you've talked about colonoscopy preps. And, you know, we're all ordering colonoscopies all the time in primary care for colon cancer screening and for diagnostic when people are presenting with, you know, blood in their stool. So colonoscopy preps aren't fun. And then I have on here colonoscopy prep WTF, because I've had a lot of patients that are just like, this is the worst. Give us your take, your thoughts.
They're not fun. I don't think they're meant to be fun. And I think that when we do colonoscopies, we shouldn't be prioritizing whether or not they're fun. We're doing them because this is a life-saving intervention. Mm-hmm. And I'm such a personal believer. Like my money is so where my mouth is on this topic because of my experience as a gastroenterologist. I've diagnosed people as young as in their 20s with colon cancer. Plenty of near misses in their 30s. And I've had people in their 40s that I've diagnosed. And it absolutely breaks my heart because I know these people, they are my age, and they have kids much like me. Right. And it is completely heartbreaking. No matter what stage it is, you just know this is not good. So from my perspective, you know, we're talking about a cancer that despite our colonoscopy program, 150,000 people are going to be diagnosed in the United States this year. And highly preventable, not perfectly preventable, but highly preventable. The vast majority of these cases would not exist. We could take this 150,000 number and drop it so far substantially if we did the right thing. So when I turned 40 years old, I have a family history where my father had advanced colon polyps. And that qualified me to get a colonoscopy because of when my father had these specific issues. So like I did not delay. I was like, let me get this thing as soon as possible because frankly, I want to know that I'm safe. And eating a plant-based diet is not enough. And that's not just this is both an evidence-based thing and also my anecdotal experience. I have had people who they refuse to get a colonoscopy on the grounds that they eat too healthy of a diet. And once I had one of them get diagnosed with cancer and she passed away, I said, never again. Yeah. And so, but on the flip side, if you look at the evidence, like much of the evidence in terms of like people eating healthful diets come from the Adventist health studies. And, there's sort of a disproportionate ratio of people who are doing vegan diets, vegetarian diets, pescatarian diets. And what you see in the Adventist health studies is that even with a healthful diet, like for example, being vegan, you only reduce your risk of getting cancer by a little over 20%. Now, that is a great thing. Like, I will take that 20% to the bank.
Yeah.
Right? I love that. But on the flip side, this is not a 100% reduction. So this is the reason why, from my perspective, we do need diet. We do need lifestyle. And we also need 21st century healthcare.
Yes.
This is how we make healthy humans, right? One does not eliminate the other, and these are not exclusive choices. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both. That's the best.
And we have the opportunity for screening. So, if it's readily available in our country, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And
real quick, Natalie, sorry to interrupt you, but many people, they don't realize or understand that they look at other countries, like they may look at Canada or the UK and say, yeah, well, they don't do colonoscopy in those countries. Okay. So you have to understand their healthcare system. Talk to a person from Canada or the UK about their healthcare system and ask them how they feel about it.
Right.
And what you will rapidly discover, because I have had these conversations, because I actually work with many people who live in the UK through my work with Zoe.
Yeah.
What you will rapidly discover is the limitations of those healthcare systems and how radically different they are compared to ours, and how they basically, you have to be so sick to get access to healthcare there. And in the United States, we actually give you the opportunity to get these more advanced type tests as a part of paying for your health insurance. And so we need to take advantage of these. You're already paying for it.
Yep. And to add to that, because I do direct primary care, so I have a lot of patients who are uninsured too, in a membership-based model. I don't care if you have insurance or not. And there are opportunities out there and programs out there for screening and colonoscopies for those of you who don't have insurance. So I think that's important to say also, that we have this tool in our country relatively readily available. So important.
The medical practice, my gastroenterology practice that I was formerly in, the way that it would work was that if you did not have the health insurance, we're not trying to ding you and we're not trying to get rich off of you. We want to make sure that you get what you need.
Yes.
And so ultimately we would so you would pay less. And the other thing would be that we often had payment plans. So like a colonoscopy would be substantially less expensive if you didn't have health insurance. We want to make sure you get what you need.
Yes. Yeah. I've had patients who have insurance save money just cash paying for a colonoscopy, which is, fascinating. Another question that I've gotten a lot from patients is they come in with gas and bloating all day, every day. Right. So are there specific places that you like to start with patients when they come in with that very non-specific presentation?
So this is an extremely common issue. And I would, sort of make the argument that when people have digestive health problems, typically the first thing that shows up is gas and bloating. And also when you actually make progress and you improve their life, like, that you've done your job when this is the one that goes away. It's the first to show up and it's the last to leave. So now when it comes to gas and bloating, there are a number of different issues. Natalie, we could talk literally for like 20 minutes on this topic. But where do I start? Well, the number one cause of gas and bloating that I come across in my experience is actually constipation. And many people don't realize you could poop every day and still be constipated. You could actually poop several times a day, but they're little bowel movements. You're not really completely emptying, and you're actually backing up. And this is the cause of your gas and bloating issue. All patients who are constipated, all of them, have gas and bloating. Now, that doesn't mean the gas and bloating, everyone's constipated who has gas and bloating, but if you have constipation, you will have gas and bloating. And the solution to this issue is to get your bowels moving. Because when you get into a rhythm, I do so much of this.
That's really nice, yeah.
So when you get your bowels into a rhythm is an important thing. Rhythm is important for the heart. Rhythm is also important for your gut. When you get into a rhythm and you get your bowels moving, you are completely evacuating. The gas and bloating will go away. And one of the big mistakes that I see people make, and I think that this is motivated by a lot of what's on the internet, and it hurts me because I don't like it, because it's misguided, is that people will believe that they have SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth. And they'll do this on the grounds that they have gas and bloating. They're like, I have gas and bloating, I must have SIBO. And then they start doing things like either antimicrobial protocols or antibiotics, both of which are designed to destroy and kill gut microbes and will not make your gut healthier. But they could potentially cause your gut to get less healthy over time. The solution to this issue is get the bowels moving. It's not antibiotics. And so when you get the bowels moving, you will discover you feel perfectly fine. And so that's one of the main sort of things that I would focus on. There's other things. Irritable bowel syndrome can cause gas and bloating. Celiac disease is something that I commonly think about. There's a condition called sucrose intolerance.
Yeah.
And sucrose intolerance is when you can't tolerate table sugar. Table sugar is so ubiquitous in our food supply that you could be eating foods that you would never think have table sugar, and they do. And that could be causing your gas and bloating. This is a tip for the 230 people who are here right now. If you have gas and bloating, and you were told that this is irritable bowel syndrome, and you have never been tested for sucrose intolerance, because we have an awareness issue, Natalie, many doctors are not really familiar with this diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
If you have not been tested for sucrose intolerance, which by the way is a breath test, I would strongly encourage you to do this test.
Okay.
It's free.
Huh.
It is non-invasive. And if we discover that this is in fact your problem, it will completely transform your life. And I've seen people that have irritable bowel syndrome, or at least they're diagnosed with that.
Mm-hmm.
They may have been diagnosed in 2005. We knew nothing about sucrose intolerance in 2005. Okay. And now fast forward to today, we have this test available. If we keep treating them as irritable bowel syndrome and they never get better, the reason that they're never getting better is because we've misdiagnosed them. And if you run this breath test, this is what I've seen happen, and it's positive. Okay, whoa, we just changed the game. Now let's get you on the treatment for this, which by the way is a completely natural enzyme replacement. And I have seen people go from miserable on their 6th doctor opinion to, holy cow, this wasn't IBS in the first place.
Wow.
And now my symptoms are completely gone.
Oh my gosh. And how do you get this test? Is this one of those like buy it off the internet kind of things, or does a doctor?
So it has to be a referral by a doctor.
Great.
There is a company. The reason why it's free is that there is a company that has a product called Sucraid, Sucraid. Okay. And this is the enzyme replacement. Now, by the way, I have zero affiliation with this company. I'm not talking to them. They're not talking to me. I don't have any money from them. This is just good medicine.
Yeah.
And what I like about what they've done, and the reason why I'm willing to talk about it, is because they have said, we will subsidize the testing because this is an under-recognized condition. And if you discover that you have this condition, we have an enzyme to help you with that. And so to me, this is a fair exchange. The test is free. If you have the test, you are not required to take the enzyme. Mm-hmm. But you have this option to take an enzyme that could be life transforming.
Fascinating. I mean, how many times obviously you, but definitely me as a PCP, seen somebody with IBS for how many years? That just isn't getting better.
When they're not getting better and the diagnosis is IBS, mm-hmm. we have to go back to the drawing board and ask the question, is this the right diagnosis? And I feel that this is the major mistake that's made by many, honestly, gastroenterologists. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is the patient walks in and says, I'm here for my 4th opinion. Mm-hmm. I've seen 3 other gastroenterologists, and the doctor in their mind says, what am I possibly going to contribute that hasn't already been done? But what if those other doctors never questioned the diagnosis in the first place, right?
Right.
So I think you have to go back and reevaluate it. Could there be sucrose intolerance? Could there be celiac disease? There's a number of different conditions that are possible that are under-recognized.
And you said Sucraid, Sucraid?
Sucraid is the name of the product.
Mm-hmm.
And if you Google search Sucraid, you will find the company.
Yeah.
The medical condition is called CSID, congenital sucrase isomaltase deficiency.
Yeah.
And and then the testing like can be arranged through the website.
Amazing. That's a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're coming up on time together. There's so much that we could talk about. I'm seeing this all the time as a primary care doc. So thank you so much for your input and sharing, dropping those knowledge bombs for us.
Natalie, do you have a couple extra minutes? We can keep going.
I have
for
so many extra minutes, but yes.
Okay, let's go. Let's keep going.
Awesome. So I have patients who come in with celiac, and one of them calls it getting glutened, where she doesn't realize that she's gotten glutened. And best ways that you can kind of bounce back after that when you get the gluten out of your system.
Oh gosh, it's tough. Okay, so this is a little bit of a complex issue. So now let's operate under the assumption that a person has celiac disease. They need to be in that setting. They need to be completely gluten-free for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. And to me, there is no flexibility, and I don't care how they feel.
Yes.
Right? Because you could feel perfectly fine. I've had patients with celiac disease who are asymptomatic. Mm-hmm. But there is a serious risk of what is called a T-cell lymphoma if you continue to consume gluten, even if you feel perfectly fine. So you need to be gluten-free. Well, gluten was hidden everywhere. And so if you get gluten, it's probably like, I'm going to hope that it's not because you decided to say, screw it, I'm going to eat a cookie.
Right.
I'm hoping that what it is that you're not sure exactly what the source is, but you know it happened.
Exactly.
This is where registered dietitians come in and can be so important for doing a complete evaluation of what is in your diet and what is in your lifestyle that could potentially predispose to this. Let me give you a quick example, Natalie. Gluten exists in some cosmetic products. Mm. So you could be putting your, sort of like lip product, lip gloss or whatever it may be on.
Yeah.
And you dabble on your tongue. And the problem is if you have celiac disease, that little bit that you just got on your tongue is enough actually to set off your immune system. Mm-hmm. So, okay, there's a second part to this. People who have celiac disease, they implicitly have damage to their microbiome. Part of the package with celiac disease is actually that when they get the diagnosis of celiac disease, because of the inflammation, they've had damage to their gut. So what becomes important is to understand that you can be completely gluten-free and actually successful, and you could still have digestive symptoms. Mm. And so you have to treat the residual digestive symptoms. And many times this ends up being something that's on the spectrum of irritable bowel syndrome.
Gotcha.
So the first question is, have you been glutened? And you can do it at blood tests, but you may, in some cases, require an endoscopy to answer that question. Have you been glutened? Okay, let's go find out. Mm-hmm. And then if you have not been glutened, then we know that this is not actually the celiac. We need to treat for this other aspect of this, which is that you have a damaged gut. Mm-hmm. So either way, if you have celiac, the solution, step one, is get the gluten out, make sure that it's out, do a thorough review. And then beyond that, support your gut and your gut microbiome. Many times I will find that a fiber supplement can help here.
Yeah. And the other thing that somebody mentioned in the comments is medications. Certain medications can have gluten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to be super careful about that.
You had mentioned earlier talking about the importance of getting your bowels moving and how the gas and bloating can be just, that's necessary, whether you feel like you're constipated or not. And a lot of people are asking any additional tips on how to get them moving.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a nuanced topic. I'm going to give you the answer, mm-hmm. but I also want to give it with the caveat that this is not a simple, like, hey, do this and then game over, you win.
Of course.
We need personalized approaches. There's actually many different forms of constipation. Some people have pelvic floor issues and they don't realize it.
Yeah.
And if you have a pelvic floor issue, what I'm about to describe is not going to work. Okay. So, this is just something to be aware of. And this is part of the reason why, Natalie, I have a constipation course, because people who want to take a deep dive into constipation, okay, let me teach you for like literally 2 hours and give you a workbook all about it. Mm-hmm. But where do I start? Many times I will start with magnesium supplements. Magnesium is natural. Most of us actually are deficient in magnesium and we don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure it's been your experience that when you actually check magnesium levels what you typically find in the average American is it's either low normal
Mm-hmm.
or abnormally low.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two most common scenarios. I almost never see high magnesium levels unless a person is like aggressively pursuing the supplements. And the
Yes.
thing about magnesium is that magnesium, despite being a natural thing that our body needs, and it's a mineral, it's involved in many different biological processes. The other thing about it is that magnesium actually helps to draw liquid into your intestines. And so this can help you to move your bowels. It functions quite similarly to Miralax.
Mm-hmm.
The difference being that here is a mineral that we need. And with Miralax, this is I'm not actually bashing Miralax, but it is a synthetic product,
Yep.
and not quite the same. Magnesium, people are asking what type of magnesium. There's many forms. Some forms of magnesium are readily absorbed. Those are not the ones that we want. We want the ones that are not readily absorbed because then they stay inside your intestines and they pull water in.
Mm-hmm.
Magnesium oxide, magnesium citrate, magnesium sulfate are some of the ones. Make sure you talk to your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kidney issues, this is a no-go. And one of the advantages is like, if they're seeing you, Natalie, then you have this conversation, you explain to them how to start. For me, typically it's about 500 milligrams is the starting dose. Usually I recommend that they do it at bedtime. And you have the ability as a doctor, if you're navigating this care with them, to ensure that their body is appropriately responding to the magnesium. And the way that we can do that is we can check the magnesium level before we start, and we can check the magnesium level after we have achieved a steady state balance.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And then, of course, there's the fiber and water. Always having that as a baseline for getting the bowels moving, but recognizing that too much of that when you're in that state of gas and bloating can be uncomfortable for people. So you always talk about going low and slow.
This is one of the sort of nuanced things is that I think people, because I've written these books where, it's all about how great fiber is, they think that that means that I'm saying that always more fiber in all settings, no matter what. And that's not true. And this is one of the circumstances when a person's very constipated, where I become very cautious about the fiber. So if a person sees you, Natalie, and they have mild constipation, and what I mean by mild constipation is that they're not constipated on a daily basis. They have constipation that comes and goes. And maybe it happens once or twice a week,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes and goes. It's not a perpetual problem. Okay, that person, you drink more water, you add more fiber, which may include fiber supplements, and you get some exercise. And by exercise, I'm not talking about CrossFit. I literally mean take a walk in your neighborhood.
Walk. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do these things, water, fiber, and movement. And next thing you know, your body gets back into a rhythm. And what used to be a once or twice a week problem is now good, regular, complete bowel movements. You've corrected the problem. But the problem is that people who typically would come to someone like me as a gastroenterologist, that's not their issue. It's not mild. It's moderate. It's severe, where they have a daily constipation problem. Every day they are struggling with this constipation issue.
Mm-hmm.
And in that setting, the problem is, so first of all, that person is gassy and bloated. They usually are there to see you for gas and bloat. They may not even be there and they may not say they're constipated. They're there for gas and bloating.
Mm-hmm.
And you discover that they're constipated. How are we going to fix this? Okay. The problem is that if I start loading you up with fiber, if you don't actually break through and start moving your bowels, you're just going to get more bloated.
Mm-hmm.
And bloating, believe it or not, there is this complex vicious cycle that exists where we have discovered that methane gas from bloating slows down bowel motility. Yeah. So when you are constipated, you produce more gas. And when you are gassy, you produce more constipation.
Keeps going. Oh.
It keeps going. So how do we disrupt the cycle? Like, how do we break that wheel? The way that we break the wheel is by making you poop.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you make a person poop, then the constipation is not producing extra gas. So the sequence goes like this. Step one, we got to get your bowels moving. This may include magnesium or even a bottle of magnesium citrate as a mini cleanse, or possibly medication. But once the bowels are moving, now we have fixed this vicious cycle issue. Now it's time to bring fiber on board.
Mm-hmm.
Because fiber becomes our friend to maintain good, healthy bowel movements.
Mm-hmm.
And so step one, make you poop. Step two, bring in the fiber. And now we're going to keep it this way. You're going to keep pooping.
Awesome. I love it. That's very useful. Thank you. Because I know it could be person to person. So we understand that, those of us listening. Well, this is amazing. Thank you so much, Will. Your books have been a huge, important resource for my patients that I share all the time, and for my family, raising a plant-centered family with littles too. So really appreciate the work that you do. And can you share where to find more information and the names of your books for people who are watching?
Sure. Hey, everyone. So first of all, I think there's questions like, can you save this live? Natalie, can you save this live?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll save this live. Natalie will share it to her feed. I'll share it to my feed. My feed is the Gut Health MD. But, here's the beautiful thing. If you go up to the top, you'll see an upside down sort of like arrow. Mm-hmm. And if you click there, you guys, you can actually discover both my profile and Natalie's profile. Mm-hmm. And you can follow. So follow both. Like if you're not following one of us, just follow both. Yeah. My books, I have 2 books. This is my first book, Fiber Fueled. I realize that reads backwards. That's an Instagram thing. So Fiber Fueled, this was my first book. It's the story, not just of fiber, but of the gut microbiome and how it's radically transforming science, and how we can take the bull by the horns and shape it through our diet and lifestyle choices, and how that could be so beneficial to our health. And then the book did so well that I was asked to write another book. And so my second book came out in May. This is the Fiber Fueled Cookbook, and it is 125 recipes. It is full color photography, but it also is 11 chapters, and 7 of the 11 chapters do not have recipes. So it's more than a recipe book. It's actually, to me, this is a protocol for gut health. It's completely evidence-based. Both of my books are completely evidence-based. I have over 1,000 references between the 2 books, and I share them. If you don't want to read my books, by the way, you can also get my books at the library. But if you're questioning the science, this is what I care about, is like more than anything. I don't care if you buy my book or don't buy my book. What I care about is that you get good information. And so if you're not really sure where to start on the science, or you're questioning, like, is Dr. B legit? Is this real? I mean, go to my website, theplantfedgut.com, and all of the references from both my books are yours with a click. And I've tried to make it as easy as possible, so you can actually even click the reference link so that you can just open up and start reading. So I don't expect you to read all 1,000 references, but you can at least skip into a couple of them. And I think in a couple of them, just by putting your eyes on them yourself, there's so much chatter and banter on the internet. So put your eyes on some references and say, do the references back up what he is saying? And this is why I post them, because they're there.
Oh, amazing. From one young doc to another, it's amazing to see those of us going into medicine for
forever young.
Forever young. Yes.
Doesn't matter what the number is. I still feel like
you still got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, we'll save this IG live for people to watch in the future. And thank you so much, Will. It was good chatting with you.
It was great chatting with you, Natalie. Thank you. How are things in Pittsburgh? Things are good? Weather's
cooling off? A beautiful day in the greatest city. I'm a little biased, but yeah, they're good.
Steelers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know this year. I don't know.
Come on, man. We have faith.
The offensive line. You got to fix the offensive line.
We have faith. Okay.
All right. See you, Natalie. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.